mention like the two books I wrote. I wrote a technical martial arts, well, it's technical, psychological, everything really, martial arts book called Virtual Circles a while back. And then I did my biography called The Unlikely Lad, and I just thought it would be a really good opportunity to talk about it and read some chapters from the book. Hopefully enlighten you a little bit. I'd like to start with the biography called The Unlikely Lad, and just first of all, I'll tell you, it sounds really egotistic writing your own autobiography. I think at the time there was a lot of different martial artists doing it, and a friend of mine came to me because I wasn't even thinking about doing it. He came to me, and called Joe, who's an England international karate champion and a really close friend. And he said, "John, why don't you do your autobiography?" He says, "because I know you've done so many different things in your life and experienced so many different things. It'd be cool for like people to read it. You know what I mean? Give them an insight into your background, your life." And I thought about it, and I thought about obviously promoting your own ego, which I'm not really that big on, if I'm honest. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think if you can help somebody, we learn off the wisdom of age. That's the way things go. And what we thought, well, I think this was written about 20 years ago. What we thought 20 years ago has changed. So this is kind of like a dialogue to envelope and add a little bit more to it. So you'll have to excuse me for wearing my glasses. I'm going to read some of the context and text for you. And then I'll be adding bits up, and I'll be doing it in chapters. So like I say, I'm going to do it from both the technical manual and also the background kind of thing. Okay? So I hope in some small way this will serve you. So like I said, excuse me. The life and times and trials of a working class artist, the unlikely lad. Now, the unlikely lad. I remember pondering, well, if I'm going to write an autobiography, what do I call it? The John Dawson autobiography? Not really viable. And I have a friend, I have two friends that I'd made in Huddersfield. I used to fight alongside them and write for their magazines. I wrote for the magazines for a number of years. Tech articles, ethical articles, interviews, all that type of thing. In my apprenticeship and trying to get into martial arts journalism. And Tony Sykes, who was the heavyweight, amazing fighter and an absolutely lovely diamond geezer, said, I've got a title for you. And he goes, "Do you remember watching in the 70s a TV series called The Likely Lads?" I goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, what about titling your book The Unlikely Lad?" Which basically means, because like, it's metaphorical, it means like you're most unlikely to succeed at this. Therefore, it's like a contradictive title to promote the ethos of the book. And I thought, well, thanks Tony for that, and I called it The Unlikely Lad. There it is. So, here's a foreword by Bob Sykes, the famous international fighter, editor of the martial and brainstormer of the Martial Arts Illustrated. And here's the foreword. "When I heard my friend John was going to chronicle his life, I was delighted, and he had a colourful and sometimes hard life. So far he's risen through most trials and yet retains his humour and sometimes over-passionate nature. So it's fitting that he chronicles his life and is allowed to write his story. I first met John Dawson about 1989 after inviting him to come down to the magazine offices of Martial Arts Illustrated and train with me in my hometown of Huddersfield. I recall back then how struck I was by this man's remarkable work ethic. I recall For example, like most fighting athletes back then, when invited to come down, I would test their mettle by taking them for a 5-mile run across hilly terrain of the Pennines. Only a handful of people back then kept up with me on my rigorous trek. Not only did John do it, but he must have talked all the way through it. In the early days of our friendship, I can also recall just how overjoyed he was when I suggested he be a correspondent for the magazine. This, I suppose, was because, like me, he stemmed from humble beginnings and was in a minor victory from the criticism and life that he had known. To write for a national publication to him must have seemed an accolade of some note. Over 20-something years we have been friends and martial artists. John has always been there to support me, even fight alongside, even when others preferred to fade into the background. Even today, John Dawson is renowned for his die-hard attitude due to his love for sport combat or competition, semi-contact, continuous fighting, kickboxing, Thai boxing, or anything to do with mixed martial arts. He is a true all-rounder, a good friend, this toughest teak fighter and writer from the northeast of England, without question, the unassuming, unlikely lad. Thank you, John, I have not forgotten. So praise indeed from both sides, and thank you both sides. I hope that still retains somewhere and resonates inside both our hearts and in our minds. So the introduction chapter was titled Everything Starts Somewhere, Me, Myself, I. So I'm told I came out screaming and hands are flailing in the air, a tiny sized infant into the golden era of the 60s. The only living son of the Dawson family. I had arrived. The world revolves and changes day to day, year to year, and of course decade to decade. I look and I realise how insignificant in the whole plan that in fact we are. My dreams have driven me, sometimes to that grandeur, and others a little more realistic. But they're always in plain sight, and the most senior to my cause or my ambition. I came from humble beginnings, and yes, I'm still humble. I'm still struggling to make a living. I suppose it's my case. I don't yearn to be rich, really substantial, yet I am ambitious, but still here to personify the term working class. So without that said, irony showed me my place where perhaps I could not climb from. It unfolds ever, but destiny, however cruel, can take away our hopes and dreams or aspirations. Please remember that when things become a little dire, when one door closes, have faith in your beliefs and your ambitions, and another will eventually open when you least expect it. I will endeavour to write this book in a chronological or a numerical order, in fact a respectable order of interest to the best of this old man's memories, in what order I can recall them. If I'm true to myself, and sadly I die today, my epitaph at this point in time might read, almost made it at being a decent human being, a fighter, a writer, an artist, could have been a good dad, should have tried harder. Do I want you to sympathise with me? Hell no, I'll do that myself. This book was never written to be a literary masterpiece, merely a tool to personify my meagre existence. Seems like all of my life I've wanted to be better than I am. Maybe I don't like the everyday mundane trot of this lifestyle. If I'm honest, I have never truly been happy with me. At times, I'm kind of insecure and can be a little paranoid. The real essence of me wouldn't even make a good aftershave. Besides, what would you call it? Ambitions not quite achieved. In reality, how does anyone working class, anyone begin to start a manuscript of this nature without coming across too egocentric or over single-minded? Maybe the reality is to be honest or truthful. I don't know. Could it be it's just simply a good place to start? But let's not break the habit of a lifetime. If I'm honest, if not only to myself, I've gauged my existence on instinct and survival alone. Sometimes it's difficult. How does anyone place the markers or steps to climb the ladder of any attainable level of success? Is it perhaps lots of hard work and a little luck, or a lot of luck with a little strife? I have known people that have managed with both edges of the sword. But it seems no matter what, I never quite get there. At the closing and the start of this journey, please let me say just this with all my honesty and truth. I will endeavour to chronicle my coexistence to the facts where my memories permit in respect. Joking aside, if you bought this manuscript thinking that you were going to be inspired, then boldly maybe you will, not because you will find wisdom in every syllable, but from the recollections and the philosophies and the experiences I have had. Profoundly, I have learned more from my mistakes than any other source. Yet if greatness is your goal, please realise one thing. Greatness to me is a state of nothing bestowed upon us by others who overzealously revere our actions and triumphs or career growths to promote their own spiritual elevation. We've all done it, elaborated on others' conquests and promoted them. In short, we all need inspiration, heroes, and sometimes this is where we will find it. As far as I have experienced life, we are born of man and woman into a world we really know nothing about. As we grow and evolve, we kid ourselves that we understand much, when upon the closing of the light, we know nothing at all. So what do I think I know? To me, human beings are God's great creation. The essence of life is very special. Some use, some abuse, and some fulfill their dreams. But for each, this single personal journey is one person's trial and tribulation. Yet unknowingly, until my latter years, I seem to spend a lot of time just simply observing people, procrastinating. Maybe that sounds a little weird or geeky, but the observations of the humankind has taught me a lot about people in general. In particular, the way we express ourselves, mannerisms, and the way we react ourselves under duress under certain situations. I don't think we really are as complex as such, although we can be. Yet external expression or reaction usually can archetype or stereotype what our intentions or indeed what we intend to be or in fact to do. Though like most people, I witnessed birth and the demise of life. I celebrate the joy of a new life, the veritable creation of something new. Then was concerned about the loss of this life force and the innate darkness of death and its none too pleasing negative cold loss. For me, both rationally and philosophically, I can see no real positively attracted to that of a human being, maybe only a release from great pain. As far as I've learned, we are born, we live and we die. I could never really figure out that point. Maybe I'm a little dim. Now if I'm honest, I'm a melancholy man, a little stuck in my past. Yet my doctrine is to live life to the full. Personally, I can always stand by my word and claim not to have intentionally wanted to hurt anyone, in all honesty. Although I must admit that I have hurt a few, and sometimes a few too many, through my single-minded selfish ways, anger and impetuous attacks, greed and lust. Upon reflection, the nature of humankind is prone to this. I bow my head and cordially off for some iota of forgiveness. But by knowing this, I make my peace and continue to take consequences of my actions, as we all should. Maybe this philosophy will make me a better person as I pray to my God for forgiveness. At this point you're probably reading this and thinking, what a self-analysing righteous arsehole. Maybe that's true. Yet each of us adapt to a way of life or style that suits our specifications or needs, or indeed becomes part of the unwritten philosophy we in fact call life. On a lighter note, there are a few questions from my childhood that I never found out. Perhaps if you know the answers, you will have the kindness to enlighten me. Help me put an end to these mysteries. Now, space monkeys, do they exist? Are they real? And what about X-ray specs? Do they really work? Can you really see through people's clothes with one, particularly women? Lastly, how can you fit a knife of Frankenstein in a tiny box? So as it is apparent, I grew up in my own little world. Couldn't afford any of that cool stuff that they always advertised in my favourite comics. I'd fill in the coupon in the adverts, but couldn't afford to buy them. I loved our magazines and comics. They were pure escapism. I have another question while we're on. Just about every superhero being in a live action or animated film apart from the main man, Submariner. He was the coolest when I was growing up. This needs sorting. About the bug, please don't worry. I'm trying all I know to stick to the facts and pulling out the odd anecdote and pearls of wisdom to promote my so far wonderful story and halcyon tales of my past existence. It's never been boring. I've had ants in my pants all my life. The word trivia can conjure up areas or topics of conversation that could possibly bore the daylights out of a prospective reader of such a written text. Yet I will write to only establish with the interest of the reader and maybe, just maybe, embellish the facts toward your attention to a specific juncture. So I say, trivia be gone. I suppose that my whole life, readers, has been a contradiction of normal. Though is anyone's life normal? We are all prone to these strange quirks or eccentricities that indeed make us unique, if not to other people than to ourselves. Yet I suppose the bus stops with me and I've always craved excitement and adventure. However, I went out again sometime in a very mercenary way. I ain't mundane, I ain't normal, it stifles me. I can never let a psychiatrist analyse me, I wouldn't dare. I think perhaps they would lock me up. At present my life has been as a pond up, from idea to idea, to project. I'm like the mouse of Pinky in the Brain. We're going to conquer the world, Pinky. I really do want to make a difference in my life to prove that I'm up for it. I've never been scared of hard work, from combat art, written music works. I've even believed a success. I have never been scared of hard work, from combat art, music to written works. I always believe success is but a project or an idea away. My faith is a big thing to me, its lows and its highs. As I sit with this written piece and endeavour to recompose my life ghosts from the past come to visit me. However, not all are friendly, but some are not unlike spirit guides, perhaps reminding me what I have learned, endured, and of course where I have come from. I ponder, are they leading me to a better realisation of me? Whether it's good, bad or multifarious, the past is important, a virtual catalogue of learning for the future for anyone to learn. From, I believe, we call it a history. Welcome to my personal history. Do me a favour, no, I really mean it. Readers, go into the bathroom and take a long hard look in the mirror. Then ask yourself, who am I really? Who am I? Am I a good person? Am I a kind, decent person? Is this the face of an achiever or indeed a failure? Am I a miserable human being or indeed a decent one? Do this for a week. Then your conclusions, I think, you will find will be simple. You will find out 7 different things about yourself. In reality, it's all about one thing, you. It's how you see yourself, how you feel at that moment in time. One day you'll feel a failure. No one ever gets it right all the time. So being a failure, you will feel miserable and an underachiever. The day after, you might just conquer Everest, or might just be able to run a mile without being out of breath, or maybe write the greatest novel. Simply, it's the nature of us humankind. But there is a point, and it's a simple one, if you will allow my prudence. The but stops with you. Faith, well, it's yours, good or bad. Belief, it's yours. Somewhere next to faith and success, it's simple. It's fairly understood. That's what I've come to know. Drive and ambition are singular and are focused to its relative success rate or conclusion. In short, it's up to you, and it is personal, no matter what your goal. We hold our own destinies. We need to take control of that. We have great motivators or coaches, but without drive or self-belief, we are in fact nothing. Without hope, dreams, we are nothing. The goal is never really in sight. We can sit in our armchairs and wish awares and could have beens. We can become part to succeed by believing, because we can meet other actual like-minded achievers or individuals that have already accomplished. In short, we live the atmosphere, but not sail in our own sea of metaphorical self-victory. In a world that I suppose that I've lived with in the confines of what I have created, occasionally I stop to ponder, is this reality or indeed a sub-one? I always seem to reach a similar conclusion. Reality is not all that is as cracked up to be. So personally, I choose, not unlike most human beings, to disconnect with it. However, in retrospect, just because I choose to ignore parts of reality, this doesn't mean that I ignore people or ignore reality or other people in my life. If we are honest to ourselves, because real living can be mundane, we mostly choose pure escapism. It's a sign of the times. Well, as a testimonial, I live a private and sometimes somewhat solitary life, because when I have been part of another one's life, I've always felt that I was not in control of mine, or I feel I let them and their expectations of me down. Maybe it's me, maybe I'm immature, or maybe like life without rules or philosophies. Yet I have had one real friend that was remained throughout all my misgivings, all my stupid mistakes. I wasn't brought up to have such a cavalier attitude. I was simply brought up this way. I simply wasn't brought up this way at all, excuse me. My late mother would have still have had me married. She most likely would have turned over in a grave, seeing the mess and the mismatch I made of my life. Luckily, my divorce was after her death. One thing this action man through a seeker will state. Someone once wrote, "Count your blessings for friends. Real friends are like stars, you don't always see them, but you know they're there. To be really loved is the greatest of all gifts, bigger than the rest. In reality, one thing I feel is apparent, which is more so in our Western world, we have forgotten real value and real living. We have become greedy and selfish. A big part of my life has been in the self-development of me and my martial arts. So I suppose that I've been connected to that and to people within it than any other aspect within my life. If you have not connected to me, it's not a problem. It's a personal goal anyway. In all honesty, I've endeavoured to find the true spirit of new endurance and intention. I've taken falls, both mentally and physically, to rise and assert myself and recover better than previous. Through the test, I've seen victory for what it's worth and defeat, and learned more about myself on the ladder. On a more personal level, I've raised smiles, cheers of joy, and caused great heartache. What's the lesson? Well, I'd rather make you smile, even laugh. I have no time for enemies. If you are my enemy, why can't we be friends? If you hate me, why can't you find it in your heart to forgive me? I don't hate you, because life is far too short. I suppose in the grand plan of things, I feel I would like to make better all the ills that I have caused. Then maybe if I die, I could do so in peace. But in life, does anyone get total closure? Anyhow, that's the doctrine most of the time. Some days in the normal life, training in the combat arts, I get up and really creak. At the ripe old age of 59, all the fighting and training has taken its toll. It's my path and I've taken it. Yesterday I had 3 martial arts lessons in a row to coach, and I paused for a moment and thought, geez, I'm tired. I'll get someone to cover me. Yet by nature, I kicked back in and said no to myself. Then I ran 3 miles, 3 rounds of abdominals, 4 rounds of back work to prepare myself. What's the point, you ask yourself? Well, you give in and you're dead. It's that simple. Others chase dreams with a part-time ideology. Others chase dreams with a part-time ideology. If you talk it, walk it. Failure is a process of re-evaluation. Part-time is not a goal, it's pure fantasy. No life is without trial. Nothing is ever perfect. When planning anything, plan ahead and even plan for failure. For anything involved in the humankind is, of course, to err, E-double-R, and we're all experts at that. I've been fortunate, or some say lucky, to have even a mediocre career as a writer. I have written about the famous and indeed the infamous. Our views were never the same, but we walked, we talked, in some cases. I met the man that met the man. What was apparent? Well, some inspired, disappointed, enlightened me. Others were PA bubbles. I will elaborate later. Finally, things that can make me smile. Well, 3 years of research that it's taken to put this meagre manuscript together. And it's come, and some of it's me. It makes me smile. Rainy days, I like them. They make me smile. The rain splashes down on your face. It's real. My children's faces, sculpting, writing music. Real true friendship and fighting. Fighting has been a real friend to me. I have found real solace in the fight game. To me, it's a game of mental and physical chess of the highest order. It's the trial, the victory and the defeat. I have learned more from defeat and victory, any victory that I have ever achieved. So what's the whole point for this book? Well, for a start, I'm trying to chronicle my life. Lessons learned, mistakes made and failures, warts and all. The fact that you want to read it is a great compliment to me. It's kind of a means that I actually stood for something. My opinions and views expressed throughout this, please believe me, are just mine. Life throws so much at us. In almost 59 years, I can honestly admit that it's never been boring. It's been fun and games most of the way, as I recollect. Anyway, thank you for your interest, and I hope you get what you want from this meagre audiobook manuscript. If you've enjoyed this, then next week I'll be doing another chapter entitled Works Hard for Money. Thank you for your time and patience.